Hi, it's Kalia Hall-Tarali here. And today what I want to do is I want to spend some time talking to you about how to co-wholesale. I'm Kalia Hall-Tarali, real estate investor coach in Washington, D.C. And today I had gotten a request to talk about co-wholesaling. And basically what it is and how to actually do that. Okay, so co-wholesaling is pretty much similar to cooperating with somebody else in order to reassign a wholesale deal. So like, let's say for instance, you're wholesaling real estate. I talked a bit about that. I think it was yesterday. But basically like when you're co-wholesaling, you're going to cooperate with the person that has it under contract in order to be able to make some extra money out of it. So it's basically kind of like a quick and easy way to wholesale real estate without actually having to get deals under contract. So somebody else, another wholesaler, is actually going to be the one to go meet with the seller. You know, let's say they're the ones looking for the deal. They're going to get it under contract. And then you as a co-wholesaler would actually be the one to actually partner with that other wholesaler in order to reassign the contract to the buyer. So basically you would have like if you're reassigning it to, like, let's say your database is people who flip properties or landlords or whoever the case is, you would be the one who would be bringing the other rehabber or flipper to the table. Okay, so step one would be, like, if you're looking to actually co-wholesale, step one would actually be to network and meet other wholesalers. And you can pretty much do that easily. Like if you were to go to your RIA, definitely a lot of wholesalers hang out at the RIAs. So you could definitely meet them there. And then once you meet with them and you know, like, let's say they tell you, okay, well, I have all these deals, or they have deals going on right now. You can ask them what deals they're working on. Sorry, my battery came up. Okay, so you would kind of find out what deals they have going on. And then you could sign a contract with them. There's a joint venture contract that you would sign with them. And then that contract, it basically spells out how the fees are going to be split. Because some, like, let's say for instance, your wholesaler has the property under contract. Let's say they have it under contract for $100,000, but that $100,000 includes their reassignment contract or their reassignment fee of, let's say, $10,000. So let's say the contract is or they have it under contract with the seller for $90,000. Their wholesale fee is $10,000. So that brings up to $100,000. Now, more than likely that $10,000 won't include you as a co-wholesaler. So typically when you come into situations like that, people are asking you to actually add your fee on top. So if your fee was like another $5,000 or $10,000, you would have to add that on top. And so when you sign the agreement, the joint venture agreement will say in there what your fee is. Okay, so one question is how to find your RIA meetings. I normally go on meetup.com. Meetup.com is pretty good for finding your RIA meetings. And you can just type in there RIA meeting wherever you're located. Let's say if I'm in Washington, D.C., so I'm going to do RIA meeting Washington, D.C., and then I can find out when the meetings are. And sometimes the meetings are free. Sometimes they're paid. Like sometimes it'll be like $10 or $25, whatever the case is. But there's probably a bunch of meetings going on. You can find a lot of them on meetup.com. If they're not on Meetup, another way to find them is actually to Google. So like you could do the same thing. So if you're in Google, you would Google Washington, D.C. RIA, and then they'll show you like the different meetings that are going on. So, okay. So you'll have to talk about your fee structure with the wholesaler. Like, so basically when you meet with them and they tell you what deals they have, you'll have to ask them, okay, your fee is $10,000. Do I need to add mine on top, or is my fee coming out of that $10,000? And so if it's not included in there, again, you'll have to add your fee on top. So one question is, okay, so how much to charge to reassign a contract? Now that's going to depend upon the deal. And so with that one, it would be the same method as if you were, let's say, making a regular offer. Let's say you were going to wholesale on your own. You have to see how much room is in the deal for you to be able to add another fee on top. Because a lot of times when you're wholesaling, if somebody is already, let's say the deal is already tight enough at $10,000, now you want to come in and add another 10, it's probably going to be difficult for you to actually reassign that contract because the deal will be too tight. Most investors who are coming in, they're not going to want to pay $10,000 to one person, another $10,000 to another. If they can't also, they got to make their money when they come in and they're looking to flip the property. So definitely when you're co-wholesaling, you need to make sure that the numbers that you're putting it off for are going to be reasonable. And I'm going to talk about more than numbers in a moment. So once you actually sign the agreement with them, the next one is going to be to market the deal. So when you're marketing it to your buyers, what you're going to do is, so let's say, for instance, we said we were at 100,000, your fee was another 10. Then when you're going to market your deal, you're probably going to put it up there at, like, let's say 115,000, because you're going to need to add some room when you put it out there to your list, because more than likely, if you're putting it out there to buyers, they're going to also try to negotiate with you. So everybody tries to negotiate. So they're going to try to negotiate. So you probably got to put it out there about 115, even though, let's say, your fee is about 110, just so you can kind of have some room for negotiations. So you're going to advertise it for more after you add your fee on top, just to make sure that you're leaving enough room for yourself. And then, of course, when your buyer comes in, your buyer still may negotiate. So they may say, okay, well, I only want to pay 105 for this. So then if they only pay 105 and the other wholesale is locked in at 10,000, then basically that only leaves you $5,000 as your wholesale fee. So that's why you have to be willing to negotiate. And also, too, I mean, you can try to negotiate with the other wholesaler. Some wholesalers decide if they're going to co-wholesale, it doesn't always have to be a flat amount. It can also just be, okay, we'll split it 50-50. So 50-50 is another way to go about it. So you'll hear a lot of people in real estate tell you they'll go 50-50 on a deal. So basically, if you find the deal, and the wholesale fee is 10,000, then you take 5, they take 5. So that's kind of what people mean by 50-50. It doesn't even always have to be 50-50. Sometimes people even want to do less than that. So, like, let's say the person who found the deal may want 60 and only want to give you 40. So it really just depends, especially like if you're a new person and this person knows what they're doing, more than likely it's not going to be enough room for them to kind of work with you as far as reducing their fees. Okay, so one question is, so you advertise a price of 20,000 deal, right? So you want to mark it up. I mean, of course, you want to make sure that it's going to be reasonable, and you can always kind of determine this by just how, like, typically when you're looking at houses that are higher priced, you have more of a spread or you have more wiggle room. But when you're working, let's say, for instance, the houses are selling like 50,000, or less than 100,000 fixed up, then typically those houses have, a lot of times they'll end up having a less spread. I mean, that's just kind of like a rule of thumb. That's not always the case. But, if let's say you have a deal at 20,000, you advertising it for 30, that may be too much. So like typically, like in your lesser numbers, you need to use smaller increments. So in something like that, if your fee is like, let's say your fee is $3,000 on it. Let's say you have a deal for $20,000. Your fee is going to be $3,000. So in that case, I mean, you may only mark it up by like a couple more $1,000s. So you may say, okay, well, this house, instead of 23,000, maybe you mark it at like 26,000 or 26,900 or something like that. You can just kind of play around with the numbers, because you want to make sure, like, if you put it up at 30,000, people may say, oh no, that's just, what are they? They're crazy. They may not even look at your deal because they'll feel like, okay, well, that's too much. So, it may be better to kind of round down. I mean, even if you're saying, okay, it's 29,900 or something like that, to keep it below, the 30,000. Because a lot of times when people are looking in real estate, they're looking in, increments of like 10, or maybe 5. So definitely you want to try to keep it like probably under 30,000, just for that example. And it depends on what the other properties are selling for. If you know that people are just getting properties and 30,000 is not a big deal, then that's fine. But you have to look at what other people are buying properties for. So you still have to do your numbers and know how much people are paying for properties in that neighborhood, to make sure that still whatever you're charging is reasonable, to be able to bring in another rehabber who wants to get that deal. Okay, so the next question is my fee a set fee? Is it including the price of the property, or is it separate? So as far as your fee, again, that's going to be negotiated with the other wholesaler, because see, they're the ones that has the property under the contract. So this is different from you actually getting under the contract. If you get under contract, then you're the person in control. You determine what your fee is. But in a situation where you're co-wholesaling, somebody else has it under contract. And so, like, let's say the deal is too tight. So let's say, for instance, that same example, they have it under contract for 20,000, and if you add a fee on top, then that's basically like you won't be able to bring any buyers. Because sometimes people do that. They'll put the price up high, and then knowing if you put another fee on, people are not going to be interested in that deal. So in that situation, that person can say, okay, well, let's do, 50-50. So the fee is, let's say 5,000. Okay, you get 2,500, they get 2,500. So it really depends upon what you work. The fee is determined based upon what you work out with that person who has it under contract. So it could be 50-50, or it can be a flat fee. But typically, the reason why I say this is because I see like a lot of people talking about co-wholesaling. When you meet people, a lot of people who are new, they'll tell you 50-50, because a lot of those people don't necessarily know what they're doing. So they'll tell you 50-50. But when you come across people who are experienced, who are like flipping all the time, a lot of those people they know what they're doing. They know how to price a deal. So typically, if they're used to making, let's say 10,000 per deal, then they're going to want their 10,000. They're not going to want to split and now give you 5,000, unless maybe they just can't find a buyer. Because typically, and that's the other thing, is that a lot of times, even though co-wholesaling sounds easy because you're not actually looking for the seller, but actually, depending upon where you are, it can be very competitive. I know I've worked with a couple people before who were trying to co-wholesale. To me, it's easier to just get your own deal under contract. Because when you start co-wholesaling, I mean, I've done deals where it's a whole bunch of other people also looking at co-wholesaling that same property. So they may not just put it out there to you, but they may be putting it out there to 20 other people or 30 other people, So it could be a lot of competition when it comes to dealing with other people. If you don't really know who that person is and they're just telling you that they co-wholesale, you could be spending a lot of work going through your buyers list. And then they done put it out there to like 10 other people, and then your person never actually ends up getting those deals. Because I've kind of done that like years ago. I had a buyer that I work with all the time. I mean, he has cash. These people, especially in DC, people have like over $1 million in their bank account, so they have proof of funds and all this other stuff. And then you're working with somebody to tell them that they say, oh, they have deals, they're passing you their deals. But every time you get out there, it's always something going on. Either you can't get in, or they're controlling who. That's the other factor, is a lot of times when people are co-wholesaling, they may have somebody meeting at the property because they want to make sure that you're not going to go behind them. People are very, they want to secure their deals and their position, because it's not like a real estate agent where they have a broker agreement and all this other stuff. Sometimes people are slick when it comes to the investment side. Sometimes you can work with people, they may steal your deals, they may steal your leads. That's kind of like one of the ugly sides of the fact that, license is not required. And so you may get out there with your person and you find that your person is never, even though they have the money, they're not getting these deals because this person's put it out there to, 20 other people, 30 other people, and they have their preference of people that they want to deal with. So co-wholesaling can be easy if you have a great relationship with somebody and maybe you guys are on the same page. And they know that, okay, well, you have buyers, you can bring deals. So it can be a good collaboration. But if you're kind of in a situation where, you working with somebody, they're doing it all the time, they really don't need you, then they may put their deal out there just to kind of fill it like right then and there. But it may not really be a priority to try to work with you and your people that you have. So one question is, what happens if you get a deal under contract and not find a buyer? So in a situation like that, if you can't find a buyer, of course you have to abide by the terms in your agreement, but basically you can get out of the agreement. So like, most people will put, home inspection. They'll use home inspection as a reason. Some people put in there, because of appraisal. So even though it's as is, some people will still put appraisal clause. So people will put different clauses in the contract. So then that way, if you can't get out of the contract, if you can't find anybody, then they'll just get out of the contract. So let's say they put, I want to have an inspection. They're not going to require anybody to fix anything because more than likely it's going to be as is. But they'll come in for an inspection, and then if they can't find anyone, they'll say, I want to get out of it because of this, this, and this. And then they just get out of the contract. So basically, you'll have a certain amount of time that you have to have those things done. So let's say, you were having your inspection within 5 days or something like that. That's pretty quick. But appraisal could be even longer than that. Some people, even though they still using they'll put cash on the property, or they'll put on the contract they're using cash. But really, sometimes people are even using hard money, or they'll say that they're using a private lender. And then they'll say, okay, well, appraisal has to be done, let's say within 14 days or something. So that gives you like 2 weeks. Or they'll put in there, okay, it's subject to partner approval. Who's the other partner? I don't know. But I mean, there really is no other partner. But basically they'll put subject to partner approval. But then, okay, yeah, my partner doesn't approve it. But really there probably was no other, or the partner could be like the rehabber. So you would put in there subject to a partner. But that partner would be your rehabber who's taking over the contract. So if they don't like it, you just tell them, okay, well, this is not going to work. And so you move on. So basically you have to be upfront with people. Like if you can't, typically the way that most sellers look at it is if the person that you're partnering with, like let's say if you're reassigning contracts, you're bringing in buyers. Those buyers are it's kind of like a collabo. It's kind of like like your partner, because more than likely, like once you build a relationship with people, you may be always bringing those same people deals. And so you can enter into an agreement with a seller and then have them come. They may have their contractor come look at the house and then just determine, okay, well, you know what, this house needs a lot more work than what we thought. Or sometimes too, I've even had where a lot of rehabbers, depending upon who you're dealing with, people are famous for this, but they'll try to renegotiate the price. So even though, like, for instance, you have it under contract with one price, they may come back later, like say, oh, okay, well, it didn't appraise, but really the appraiser's like some hard money lender. And then they'll try to say, oh, well, it didn't appraise. So basically I can't offer, let's say it's 100,000. I can't do that. I need it less than that. So, sometimes, real estate can be very intense, because sellers, of course, they don't like that because they want to get by the time they get the contract signed, they're ready to move forward with whatever's in the contract. But I have seen where some of these rehabbers, a lot of investors, because again, people are not licensed and all those other things. They're technically a buyer, and they try to maybe renege on stuff or try to backtrack, because also too, they know that the person that's selling may be in distress. And so they try to, go back on stuff. So let's see. So far we have, okay, so networking with other wholesalers. We had, okay, you would add your fee on top, or it would be 50-50. You would go about marketing your deal to your buyers. So again, you can meet your buyers also at the RIAs. Or also we talked more about that yesterday. Like if you were doing marketing for buyers, that would be another way. And then you would also sign a JV contract. So that would be important to sign something with that person that you're JVing with to make sure that you're going to actually get your money. To make sure that, because see, your buyer, when you bring your buyer in, that's the next step. But when you bring your buyer in, you're going to sign, your buyer is going to be the one that's signing that reassignment contract, because again, the initial wholesaler is the one that has it under contract. And so you're bringing in your flipper or your rehabber or your landlord. And so they're going to actually just sign a reassignment agreement. It's not like a whole new contract. It's just like, maybe a 2-page contract that says that, they're taking over the interest in the contract. And so since your flipper is going to be signing that reassignment contract, that's why you definitely need a joint venture contract with the other wholesaler who had it under contract, because otherwise you really don't have anything in the deal. You don't have anything in the deal if you don't have any paperwork signed and you just going on somebody's word that says, okay, I'm going to give you 50-50. Because at the end of the day, they could take your buyer, go to settlement, because technically they have their legal contract signed. They have the assignment agreement. They have the main purchase agreement. And so in order for you to get paid, you need to have your JV contract signed with the person that you're co-wholesaling to. Because once all the contracts are signed, then basically you will go to closing. And that closing is where the checks will be like distributed. So basically your buyer is going to be the one paying the assignment fee. And so you need to also make sure that you're going to get paid from your fee out of that. So if you sign that JV contract, if it's 50-50, then basically you would get half of whatever that fee is. But if your fee was just add on top, then technically, that again, you would need to make sure that you're going to get your money out of that. Ashley, okay. Ashley's asking about the JV contract. We can go over that one. I can go ahead, since you're working with me in the course, I can go ahead and give you the contract that you need for the JV. And then also too, the JV contract, again, there's different contracts, because some say 50-50, some say, so you'll have to change. It's a basic standard contract. It's really like almost one page. So you'll need to add in if it's going to be like 50-50. And so for those of you, I guess we'll go over a little bit more on Saturday. But for those of you who are interested in actually like learning more and learning more about real estate investing, I do offer real estate investing courses. I can go over a little bit more about that. I guess we're going to have a webinar either this Saturday or Sunday. So if you guys can go into the group and say whether or not you want to attend on Saturday or Sunday. But that webinar is just going to be about starting your real estate investing business. And then at the end of the webinar, I can go over like some of the courses that I do offer if you're looking to take things to the next level. So, and in this course, and the courses that I teach, like even if I'm teaching people in person or online, I pretty much start from the beginning, like teaching people how to get buyers, how to like look for deals, how to evaluate the deals as far as like I used to also do appraisal work. So I kind of show you like how to evaluate the numbers. It's kind of, it kind of takes a little while to do it, and it kind of takes a while to get the hang of it. Cause I would say like on average, even just to show someone how to do appraisal work or how to come up with the values, it takes probably about an hour or so, to kind of show you like what to look for in the comparables. And it kind of takes, it's one of those things where you get the hang of it over time. So there's really no, one size fits all formula when you're actually like going through the deals and trying to evaluate numbers. I just learned that like over time when you're going through evaluating. So it definitely takes practice. Of course, it's easier to like look for the deals, do the research. That part is easy. It also takes practice as far as like making calls and calling sellers and learning how to talk to sellers. Knowing the contracts and stuff are pretty easy because those are more so like just fill in the blank. But most of the practice comes in with the evaluation of the deals, knowing how to talk to sellers and overcome rebuttals, and also just being able to build rapport and those type of things. That also takes a lot of practice. But what I'll do is on Saturday, if you guys can go below and let me know on the other post, I'll go ahead and just push it back to the top again. But basically just let me know if you want me to do the webinar on Saturday at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time or Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which one is going to work best for you. And then I can also go over like some of the information I have for like the different course options that I do have available. Okay. So, well, are there any questions just so far about, oh, she said, how do you get the course? And I want those classes. Okay. Well, what I can do is I can just, I can go over more of it with you, Artis. I'm sorry. I'm just seeing your questions. Cause once I go off, I'll go ahead and I'll push it back to the top for the webinar, and then I'll go over more too, about the courses and things. Cause there's different options really too. It depends upon what your goals are. Like some people want to, cause actually, I'm sorry, go off on a tangent here, but I, also do training. Like I do management and stuff for people who want to do vacation rentals. That's like something separate. I haven't done that in a while. So right now, most of the courses are pretty much geared towards people who want to, let's say they want to wholesale. I pretty much start people with wholesale, and I think that's like the easier way for them to kind of get their feet wet. But then after you really get into the wholesaling part, it doesn't take much to step into the next level, to get into flipping. The only difference is that with flipping, it just requires more capital, because if you think about it this way, but like when you're wholesaling, you've already pretty much evaluated the deal for somebody. So you've already gone in there and determined, okay, well, the house is worth this. This is how much work is required, because you've already had people come by and estimate the properties. You already know like how much the other properties are going for that are fixed up. So when you're wholesaling, you've already done the evaluation. So you know how to evaluate properties. And so like for people who go from the wholesale into flipping, it's just really more so about capital. And when I say that, it really just depends upon, like, there's different ways to get funding. So, you have people who offer like rehab financing, and pretty much if you're going for like a conventional type of person, you've got to have like some type of credit, and they're probably going to look at your debt to income ratios. So just like a typical lender. But there are people who offer, even non-interest, rehab financing. But even with that, it's going to be a typical, probably like 10%, 20% down for those type of products. It can be less, but again, it depends upon your credit score and your income and your debt to income ratios. Then you have, like I had, someone asked me the other day about, they were talking about these business line of credits, because some people are saying that they're using a business line of credits, and I guess they're giving about 50,000. That could work depending upon where you live. But I think even still with the business line of credits, it depends upon your credit score. Because you are like borrowing money. And I've even seen people advertising where it's like 0%. I don't know anybody that's gotten a 0%, but I have seen that. Personally, just from my past experience, like I've done rehabs, but I do more like group deals. So I do more deals where I'm doing like limited partnerships with people, and then we're doing like memberships and shares, and people are putting up like certain percentages. I'm not so much into